Double Dragon Gaiden Rise of the Dragons. I saw this game on stores several times and I wasn't really too interested in it because here's the thing, I'm not really a huge Double Dragon fan. The first time I played a Double Dragon game was Double Dragon Neon when I downloaded the demo on the PS3 off of the PlayStation Network. But then my friend picked it up and we played it over at his house and I actually enjoyed it. It has like an 80s vibe to it since Double Dragon came from the 80s. But I decided to go and pick up the game for myself. He originally had the Switch version and I bought the PS4 version, and we decided let's make a trade since he usually likes playing games on the PS4 and I like playing on the Nintendo Switch. So what do I think about the game? Well, let's get into it. The story takes place during a nuclear war where 4 different factions take over New York City. A mysterious man carries Officer Marion to the dojo, home of the Lee brothers Billy and Jimmy. Now in other continuities, Marion happens to be the shared love interest of both of them. Not sure if that's the case here, but they do seem to know her and the two question her safety. The man happens to be the new mayor of the town, who unfortunately can't do much since he was just elected, hoping that we would rid the city of crime. I don't trust that guy. The young but impulsive Lee brothers decide to take action along with the help of their Uncle Martin and the healed out of nowhere Officer Marion. The most interesting thing to talk about with Double Dragon Gaiden is how the progression system works. There are 4 missions that you must complete, but you're free to choose between which one you want to do first. Each of the missions technically have 3 levels, but you won't be going through every single one of them in a playthrough. Whichever mission you choose first, you'll only go through 1 level and fight the head honcho at the end. So say you want to infiltrate Anubis first. You'll only go through 1 stage and fight him at the end. However, this does mean that you will miss out on the alternate levels of the mission. And the next mission you choose will only have you go through 2 levels, with the last 2 being 3 levels. From a story perspective, this alerts the other factions who will send most of their crew to guard their turf against you. This makes the difficulty curve go from easy to harder. And trust me, this game will kick your ass easily, especially if you're playing by yourself. However, if you were to choose Anubis much later on, this will eventually lead to a bigger and harder boss fight with a different set piece. In other words, you're not going to experience every level on your first playthrough. I didn't know what to think of this at first, but I actually like this. Each of your playthroughs will be fresh and unique as you go through alternate paths. So you can choose between the Lee brothers, Marion or Martin, but you can only pick 2 in your party. Billy mostly kicks while Jimmy punches. Personally, I prefer Jimmy because I think he has the better specials than his brother. The way he wails against his enemies is just so satisfying to watch. Plus he has a better air attack. Marion is a long range fighter as she uses her gun to shoot foes from far distances. But if she wants to get close and personal, she can roll and hit someone with a baton. With how aggressive the enemies can get, shooting from afar helps reduces her chances from taking damage. This also applies to boss battles. She can also jump in the air and shoot from above, which is definitely useful if she's surrounded by a lot of enemies. Martin's my least favorite as I'm just not a fan of playing as the heavier characters. His special where he can plow through enemies is great, as long as you don't use it near any edges. There's also certain stages where you have to do some platforming, which I don't recommend using him for due to his heavy weight. Jimmy and Marion are my 2 favorites to play as. Marion's long range makes it easier to deal with enemies, and Jimmy for having the more aggressive combos. Speaking of combos, when you use one against 3 or more enemies all at once, you'll earn food to restore your health. As you have 2 characters in your party, you can switch between them at any given time. The switch mechanic can be very important. If your current character is losing health, you can tag out the other character so your previous character can replenish his or her health. This can also be used to break enemy combos. Underneath your health bar you have a special meter. While your meter drains while using a special, it quickly replenishes itself, or you can defeat enemies to replenish it faster. The combat, while slow at times, feels good and very responsive. You can choose standard melee attacks or go all out with combos. As you attack one enemy, you can also switch directions to fight off another. And like every other beat 'em up, there's also jump attacks. There's a grab ability which during your first time will take some getting used to. Earlier in the game, there were a lot of times where I used this move only to leave myself vulnerable for an enemy to hit me. But when it does work, you can give him a good old beatdown. Beating enemies and clearing stages rewards you with cash. which if your entire team is fallen can be used to revive them. And you'll want to collect as much cash as possible since the further you get into the game, the higher the price increases. If you're stripped out of cash, then you can use a token. Tokens is one of the items that you can earn by beating a stage. Unfortunately, these don't appear as often as you want and are actually pretty rare. Despite having files and being able to save your data, Dragon Gaiden has the heart of a beat 'em up that you'd play in an actual arcade, meaning that you'll need to pay in order to continue your playthrough, or else you get a game over and have to start from the very beginning. And while I don't mind this aspect of the game, you'll want to collect as much tokens as possible so you can save them for unlockables, such as hidden characters, which, by the way, why do these guys cost so much tokens? Sheesh, by the time of this recording, I've only unlocked a Bobo and Anubis. I don't know if I'll be able to unlock all of these characters unless I'm really dedicated to. When clearing a stage, you're given money and the ability to upgrade your stats. However, you're only able to buy one at a time for each character. These can range from strength, speed, tokens, free cash, or more. The bosses, depending on your path, can either range from mildly difficult to super aggressive. Personally, I found Anubis to be the hardest one. He kept using his special moves over and over again. I even used Marion to fight him from a long distance and he still found a way to whip me good. Each of these boss encounters will depend on the ramifications. Whatever missions you choose in order will affect the variety of boss fights as you progress. The soundtrack is enjoyable and is definitely for those that enjoy 80s pop and rock music. I miss those times. I particularly like the elevator music, and the third stage, The Killer's Forest. Now I know beat 'em ups are not really known for their compelling and engaging stories, so I'm going to talk about the third act. For those of you who want to avoid spoilers, skip to this time. So after defeating all the gang members, the mayor congratulates you, but something about his words. By his side and no one would oppose us. Now come on, if you've played beat 'em ups like Streets of Rage before, you know something was up with this guy from the very beginning. You can either say yes to his $10,000 or say no and find out the real truth, in that he really wanted us to get rid of the other gangs for him just so he can be the only opposing force in the city. So our heroes enter town hall and must defeat the mayor's troops in this radically long hallway. And no surprise here, but all the bosses you find in the game, turns out they were working for the mayor. Defeat all the bosses again and then you fight the big man himself, in a boss fight similar to Mr. X from Streets of Rage 2. Afterwards, everyone gets a happy ending, as Uncle Martin joins Marion in the police force, while Billy and Jimmy reopen the dojo and become senseis, where they vow to teach their future students on how to protect their city. So that was Dragon Gaiden Rise of the Dragons. Not an amazing game, but as far as beat 'em ups go, it definitely gets the job done. Especially if you love those 80s and 90s arcade beat 'em ups, you can't go wrong with this game. Definitely recommend playing it with a friend, because by yourself, it's probably going to be very difficult for you. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.